Welcome to this edition of Able on Air, the one and only program that focuses on the needs, concerns, and achievements of differently abled. I'm your host, Lawrence Seiler, and Arlene is not here today. On this program, we will focus on the Communication Alliance of Washington County Mental Health. Welcome to Able on Air, and you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you for having us. My name is Lee Dakota, and I'm a case manager at Washington County Mental Health, and I'm also a communication resource specialist, so I'm here to support Scott on today's show.
And your name?
My name is Erin Rose. I am an ally of the Communication Alliance. I also work with Tracy full-time, supporting him in his work.
Okay. How important is augmentative communication for people with disabilities, in your opinion?
Sure. I think it's a pivotal part of their life. Everybody needs communication to be able to get their needs met. And I think that without communication, you just don't have the same quality of life as somebody who does have that ability to communicate. So the alternative communication is a way for everybody to get their thoughts out through typing.
Okay. Scott, why don't you introduce yourself?
Advocate for themselves. My name is Scott Brody. I first need to tell you I use supported typing to communicate. I do not have reliable verbal communication, so I need a computer and an assistant to help me type. I work for Washington County Mental Health as an hourly administrative assistant. I am currently focused on finding employment where I feel I am called, which is blogging and writing about my experience as an advocate for people with disabilities. To advocate for myself, I have to educate others about autism. I think that it is important for everyone to advocate for their own rights, but sometimes it is helpful for others to support them.
Since we're on that topic, before we get to Tracy, I know Scott said a lot of things, but in your opinion, how important is it for advocacy, especially for people with disabilities, like speaking up for your own rights? I'm asking you.
Okay. I think that
As a support worker for Scott.
there's been a lot of work done by the Communication Alliance and other groups throughout Vermont, testifying at the State House, and also other legislative efforts on the right to communicate, to be able to advocate for their needs and their rights that they have as individuals.
Tracy, you can introduce yourself.
I am Tracy Thresher, and I live in Barre, Vermont. I work at Washington County Mental Health as an educator and peer mentor. I am working hard as an advocate for the right to communicate, traveling the country doing trainings and workshops on presuming competence and supporting people with communication challenges. I am happy to be here today to talk about the Communication Alliance and share our message of communication rights for all.
What's her name again?
Erin?
Aaron. What, in your opinion, how important is it for augmentative communication, especially people who can't speak?
I think it's extremely important. You know, it's the reason that these guys are here today. It's given them every opportunity that they've had to advocate and to share their message. Tracy's co-star of his film, Wretches and Jabbers, Larry Bissonette, has typed, everyone wants communication, and that, you know, it can be a difficult thing to access for people.
Especially because way back when they didn't have, I'm talking about years ago, they didn't have this, you know, computers were dinosaurs compared to just having an iPad. So to be able to communicate is just a wonderful thing. Tracy, what, tell me a little bit about the movie. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And your experience in the movie?
Was life.
I'll get to it.
Changing.
Take your time.
Experience.
That's why we put more time on the clock.
Me.
That's why we put
Two.
because of this.
Travel. The
Country.
world. And eat.
Pay the way. All right. Away. Other.
Other.
Over the way. Hey. All right.
It's very good.
People.
All right.
Mhm.
All right. Hey. All right.
Who?
I'll talk about this.
Type. Having. Fact. E. Life. With.
Take your time. Tell me a little bit.
It was a life-changing experience for me to travel the world and meet other people who type having to face life with communication challenges.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the mission? Like, why does the Communication Alliance really exist?
The Communication Alliance is an advocacy group supported by Community Developmental Services and is also recognized as a state advocacy group through Green Mountain Self-Advocates. The Alliance originally formed in the spring of 2008. The group is comprised of individuals who type to communicate. Their mission is to advocate for people with communication challenges, for quality of life initiatives, and for increased public awareness. The Communication Alliance hopes to convey that people with disabilities have the same fine potential as an individual who does not experience a disability. The Alliance also hopes to spread the word and educate others about supported typing and to show that they have a voice just like anyone else.
This is more to you and them.
아니야.
What are what are some of the misconceptions around people with disabilities when people first meet them, especially those who can't speak?
So one of the big things for a lot of us is presuming competence. So thinking that the individual has the ability to do things and not just assuming that they're not able to do something just by the way that they look or you might perceive them.
In your opinion, same question?
Can you ask it?
Okay. What is what are some of the misconceptions around people, especially because you work with Tracy and others who can't speak? What are the misconceptions or some misconceptions around people with special needs when people first meet them, especially those who have problems speaking?
Well, I think what Tracy has typed is that, and a kind of a classic quote from Rosemary Crossley, who really developed this form of communication, is not being able to speak doesn't mean you have nothing to say. So it's really.
Tell me a little bit about some of the history of augmentative communication. You said somebody had created it because she couldn't speak, or she.
No, Rosemary Crossley was a woman who worked in an institution in the 70s in Australia, and she met a woman who couldn't speak and who wasn't given the opportunity to show her intelligence. So by presuming her competence, her name was Annie, I believe, presuming her competence and providing the tools and the access to strategies that would help her to communicate, it was able to open up her world. So it's really our job to provide opportunities for people to show the intelligence that is there.
So you think that if we didn't have, because it all goes back to history, like Helen Keller, Louis Braille, and some others, if we didn't have what we have today, do you think without augmentative communication it would be hard for people like Tracy and Scott to speak or to communicate?
What do you think?
Do you think it would be hard for you to communicate if you didn't have the device you have?
It would be
I gotta get used to it.
nearly
Impossible.
Push.
impossible for me to share my true voice.
Can you hold your iPad?
Heard. Without
Push. Push.
facilitated.
Nice job.
It would be nearly impossible for me to share my true thoughts and make my voice heard without facilitated communication.
Tell me a little bit more about, this can go to both of you. Tell me a little bit more about the communication lines. How many people
Trade.
or advocates is in the communication alliance?
The second one. The other one. Yep.
The Communication Alliance is a group of 6 self-advocates who type to communicate. We meet twice a month at the Community Development Services offices in Barrie. The alliance includes myself, Tracy Thresher, Scott Brody, Chris Medina, Connor Cleveland, Kyle Moriarty, and Malia Darling. Our meetings often include discussions around the initiatives we are working on, upcoming advocacy opportunities, and fundraising for trips and conferences. Our next upcoming project as a group will be a webinar on the right to communicate that we will present in collaboration with the Wellspring Guild of Master Trainers.
Is the Communication Alliance or services through the Communication Alliance only for people that get services through Washington County Mental Health?
Scott, do you want to say? Yes, that question is about.
I'll repeat that question again. Is the Communication Alliance only for people who get services through Washington County Mental Health?
Your turn.
Does he need a break? Does he need a break?
We're okay.
Yes.
Nice breath.
Receive.
Your eyes open.
Services.
No, my question was, is the Communication Alliance only for people who receive services?
Fine.
Through.
Oh,
Washington.
Keep going.
County. Mandel. Health. But
Got it.
May.
Can you dry sunscreen?
Attend. Meetings. Hour. Other.
Ice. Ice.
Events.
Put your eyes open.
With. Other. Self. Add.
Look at the screen. Scott.
Buckets. From.
Why?
Other.
Push through. One tap. One tap.
Yes, we all receive services through Washington County Mental Health, but may attend meetings or other events with other self-advocates from other agencies.
Before we continue, let's take a look at a short video about Scott and then a short video about Tracy. Let's take a look at these videos.
My name is Scott Brody. I first need to tell you I use supported typing to communicate. I do not have reliable verbal communication, so I need a computer and an assistant to help me communicate. I work for Washington County Mental Health as an hourly administrative assistant. I am currently focused on finding employment where I feel I am called, which is blogging and writing about my experience as an advocate for people with disabilities. To advocate for myself, I have to educate others about autism. I think that it is important for everyone to advocate for their own rights, but sometimes it is helpful for others to support them. War by Scott Brody. Battles for freedom require great effort. Lives torn and ripped apart by the force of the struggle. Victories accomplished and celebration of success. Autism struggle prevents normalcy and demands massive energy just to be. Family, friends, and supporters pulled, shoved aside at times. Unfortunate bystanders of my life. Intelligence glowing through my typing, bright light of the dawn of communication.
Thank you, and welcome back to Abled It On Air. Now let's take a look, as we understood in part of the program. Tracy was part of a movie called Wretches and Jabberers. Let's take a look at that trailer.
And Tracy Fletcher from Barry, Vermont.
Why
name is Larry Biscuit.
I heard that you traveled around the world, but what is the purpose of this world tour you're doing?
To help people knowledge, disability, to possibly breathe.
What would be the one thing that you would want people to understand about you?
I was so excited to hear that the film was actually going to happen. I had brainstormed the film idea, and here we are.
So, any questions of Larry or me?
I'd like to know what it means to you to have autism.
I was trapped in their body that didn't work right and was, and not be able to let people know.
Do you think that any autistic child can start communication?
People all want communication. Maybe we should go for a run right now. I gotta set up the computer here.
Hello, everyone.
You are telling us that our assumptions are wrong.
Born like you've been not. Now that we know a little bit more about their life story, what are the future goals of the Communications Alliance?
The group takes part in a variety of advocacy projects. Some have included educating legislators, senators, and other decision makers regarding necessary communication supports and services that are essential in helping us lead enriched lives. We have also been diligently spreading the message we are thinking, feeling people who have a lot to say and who should be presumed to be competent to communicate in some way under the right circumstance. The Alliance is always on the lookout for educational opportunities, such as presenting at conferences and workshops, where we can share our stories and experiences in an effort to be a resource to others.
Scott, what are some of your future goals or goals of the Communication Alliance?
Do you have any other goals you want to share?
Include future goals include continuing to advocate for rights of people with disabilities and working toward more presenting and paid employment.
JC, what are some of your future goals?
It would make me a very happy man to see a world where we all have the support we need to communicate and be in the driver's seat of our own destiny.
And with that end, I would like to thank you guys for joining me on this edition of Abled On Air. As always, we're very strong advocates. Thank you so much for joining us today. You have anything you want to say before we end?
I'll try that.
Thank you.
I need the number to the communication lines because I'll put your number at the bottom of the screen.
Lawrence. 4. Having. Us.
Like a number.
Straighten out your finger.
Thank you, Lawrence, for having us on today.
You're very welcome. Scott, is there anything else you want to say? You have any more to share before we end? Take your time. What happened?
I am glad we could be here today, and thank you for having us, Lawrence.
Okay, and with that end, I would like to say thank you for joining us on this edition of Ableton On Air, and continue to watch our program as we air on other public access stations. Please keep in mind that this is the first of 3 augmentative communication shows with the Communications Alliance.
Our office phone number is 479-2502. That's like the the allies or the supporters, but in order to reach the typers, they all have individual email addresses.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this edition of Ableton On Air. I'm Lawrence Seiler. See you next time.